Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing on our pandemic projects, and this is one that I picked up at a flea market. I don't think it made it to the flea market previews, but it was relatively inexpensive. I think it was $5. It is a Model 150. It says Sears Roebuck and Company. It has the Sears 9-digit tag below in the model, but it's not a Sears reel. It was made for Sears. Sears didn't make fishing reels. It says engineered and developed in California, USA, made in Japan. And the questions are always, okay, well, who made it in Japan? There was a lot of Japanese manufacturers at the time. And this one is a Daiwa. And it's interesting to note, if you just, here's one that actually is branded Daiwa. Now it's not identical in terms of the reel, but there's just some telling tales behind it. For example, look at the bail structure here, and look at the bail structure here. They're near identical in terms of that trip lever. If you look at the plate or the bail arm, near identical. If you look at the top knobs for the drags, yep, you guessed it, near identical. Bail wire assembly, yep, same, and so on. So they did make some minor changes, right? But they kept a lot the same. So your handle knob is basically the same, even though the bar for the handle is a little bit differently. And just be aware that when you're shopping for reels, or if you pick one up, it's not everything it may seem, right? So you're buying at Sears, you were buying a Daiwa reel under the Sears branding. This thing, even the indentation in the reel foot in the back here, you have that little hollow in the reel seat here, and you have the same hollow here. So be aware of what you're buying, and sometimes you can get a great deal, like a $5 reel here that's branded as a Sears that's actually Daiwa. So we're going to take this apart. We'll show you what made it. My estimate is this is the 1970s. Probably sold as part of a combination with the rod and reel from Sears. And let's clean it up and let's get it back out there, give it a second chance, and let it go fishing. I'm going to start by taking off the drag adjuster knob. That gives us the spool underneath. And that spool, we have some drag washers. We'll get to that later. If you look inside here, one of the things you're going to notice is that there is no collar nut, which means that to remove your rotor, you would have to come underneath here and pull the clip to get the. It also usually means that the pinion gear is part of the rotor as a single piece and not a separate pinion gear. Took this off just to do two things. I want to clean this up, and I want to give it a good oiling and the like, because it's no doubt been sitting for a while. So let's go open it up so that we can take that off. There's 3 screws here. They can be, you can use them either as a Phillips head, because it does have a T in it, or you can use, because it has a straight crease across, you can use a flat-bladed screwdriver. So whatever works best for you. Speaking of working, we want to thank the first responders, the essential personnel, law enforcement, fire, EMT, and everybody who's been on the front lines keeping us safe during the pandemic. They've been working hard, and I want to recognize their efforts right here, right now. Thank you. What you do is certainly making us safer and keeping us well. I appreciate it. While I work on reels, I like to use a protective glove, latex glove on my non-working hand. I had difficulty wearing it on my right hand, which I use. And I also keep a parts tray where I put all of the pieces and parts, like those 3 screws and a drag knob that you saw. Now take the case off. The case has got a simple design underneath it. Here's what I was talking about in terms of this being a pinion gear that's part of the rotor. I'm going to pull the main gear off, and to do that I'm going to hold that rotor and turn back on the handle. The other thing I like to do when I'm doing this is I like to switch the anti-reverse to off. Okay, So let's get some of these pieces and parts out of the way. We'll clean it up, we'll lube it back up, and we'll get it back out fishing again. There's a pin here that's holding the crosswind block and the axle assembly together. You can pull that pin out, put that into your tray so you don't lose it. If you lose any of these parts right now, the reel just became a parts reel, because you're not going to find the pieces and parts for something like this. And now with Sears out of business, maybe these become collectible. I don't know. They've made so many of them. All right, axle shaft goes into here. The crosswind block. Notice the orientation on it. It's very easy when you go to reinstall to put that thing in upside down, like this. It can fit that way, right? It's going to be wrong. Your line's not going to spool. You're going to bump into something. So take pictures along the way. If you find that you want to trust your memory, one of the things that you find is your memory is just not that reliable. So take pictures. That bump belongs on the downside if you have a reel apart and you're trying to figure out why it didn't work. Here's the clip. It was a popular technology in the time. It's a clip that holds the rotor on. It's a U-clip. It sits in a joint on the pinion gear, and that'll hold the rotor to the top. Folks have asked me from time to time, they got a lot of wobble in their rotor. What can they do? Can't do anything. That clip, your best bet would be to replace that clip if you could find one. But really, if that clip is worn down and you can't find one, that's something you just have to live with. Unfortunately, that makes the level wind of the spool kind of figure eight like, because it'll, as it's going, it'll wrap it kind of with a loopy kind of a take to it. All right, now we can remove the rotor, and I'm going to grab some WD-40 or penetrating oil, doesn't matter whose it is, just to kind of use this as a cleaner, and also use that to free up the bail assembly arm. And yes, I am wearing a long sleeve shirt. It's getting to be fall and it's getting to be cold, and it's gone too soon. All right, let's just get the old grease and grime out of there. Get it off that assembly. Dirt is the enemy of a reel, so take your time, make sure you clean it. I use a combination of cotton swabs and paper products and just about anything that I can to keep them clean. Okay, test your bail. You want to make sure that that is working properly. It's going to fire when it hits the clip, and this one's firing fine. You can also, there's a little bit of dirt back there. This one, I don't know where this one's been sitting other than on a table in a flea market, but there's some accumulated dirt up top here on the collar, so let's get that off while we're at it. Probably the first time this reel's seen some service in a while. But for $5, you kind of expect that stuff, right? Okay, let me just trip this again. See if I can trip it. Yep, it's firing fine. It's kind of a testament to the reel. And then clean the stuff underneath here. Again, this is just where that grease and dirt and grime tends to accumulate. And in this case, this is sitting under the collar here, and water's got a big hole to go through to get in there, so it can clog it up. Take your pin, take a wire brush, take whatever you like, and clean the channels of the pinion gear. And these are really easy to service, so if you have one of these, don't put the service off. It's only going to take, what? This whole video is going to take 10-15 minutes maybe. It's certainly enough to do in a short period of time with a relatively simple reel design. So go ahead and do it. Don't feel like it's beyond you, or I'll put it off. You don't want to lose a fish because you didn't take the time to clean something up and your reel jammed. All right, I'm going to put new fishing reel grease on here. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease, and you can use any fishing reel grease you like. Just make sure it's a fishing reel grease. And I'm going to make sure that the whole collar gets greased here up top in addition to the teeth, because that collar is going to ride in the bushing here, and you want a smooth ride there. Okay, push the main gear out. because we want to clean up the interior of the body. We have some old grease, but not a lot of it in the case, so let's get that out. That's just spillover. There's no reason why that grease is there. It's just falling off the other pieces. I'm going to use some oil now on the anti-reverse just to keep that nice and oiled. Let's grab the main gear then and clean the back side of that. So solid design, simple design, stood the test of time in terms of being here all these years later. I'm going to use a kind of a stiff brush. It's not metal, just to clean out the tracks of this. And just one more time wipe it with the piece until you get it clean. And then we can just reinstall. We can make sure that we get some, looks like there's a little bit of the old grease in the channels here for the click ratchet. Go ahead and get those out as well. Just reinstall. So it's good to take pictures, even on a reel like this. It's easy enough to get confused, and those pictures will provide you with the reference points. Harder to get is a schematic for this reel. You can get the schematics for the Daiwas, and if you can match them up, you're in good condition. But a lot of times you don't know which model it's actually using pieces and parts from. Most of the time these are interchangeable. If you need a part and you find a Daiwa reel that kind of matches, a lot of times it is the same pieces and parts, but not always. Okay, main gear goes in first. Drop your stud down. We're going to grab our rotor now. We're going to place that in. You can't put that in first because obviously you have the main gear behind it, and there's no way to get that main gear in if you have this protruding. Grab that collar. That goes back in now and seats just like that. The side plate will hold that in place. Again, just like everything else, you want to clean the internal tracks of this crosswind block. And you want to grease it so that it slides nicely up and down. Remember what we said, the point on this where that stud is goes below, not like that, it goes the other way around, like that. Oops, that's backwards. There we go, got that proper. Clean off your axle shaft. Pin is going to go through that hole, so you need to align. You need to start by putting it through the rotor hole and the pinion. Then when you get to about here, start turning your pins, your axle shaft, so you can line that hole up. Then pass it through. Visually you should be able to see it, which is what I'm doing now. I'll just use a pin to show you. There's a pin seated in the hole, and you want to take that pin that you took out, put that in. Now if we put our handle back on at this point, we should see the reel working. Nice and smooth. Wow, that is really nice and smooth. Put your anti-reverse on, make sure that's working. A nice little reel. I did hear a little click here, so squeaky gear gets the oil, so a little bit of oil into the handle. I think we did this already, I'm not sure, but put a drop of oil on each side of the bail. This is a dead arm, it doesn't do anything, but you can put oil there anyway. And then the last part of the service is just to clean those drag washers off after we put the side plate on. So here's our side plate back. Just like that. Now I noticed on the way out that those 3 screws that I took off were the same size. You need to pay attention to that. Sometimes manufacturers put screws on of different lengths. If you find that's the case, then you need to know where the short screw or the long screw went. It's particularly annoying trait of some of these reels, particularly spinning reels that have bump caps on them. This one doesn't have a bump cap, but almost always the screw under the bump cap is a different diameter and a different length than the other side plate screws. And that holds true of Shimano and Penn and other manufacturers. Okay, the 3 of these should be done. Let's go open up that top. Now, unfortunately, in a video like this, I don't have the time to do cleaning. There is cleaning on this. You can see that there's quite a bit of old dirt. My thinking is that whoever owned this reel was probably trying to sell it at a flea market for some time, and it's just all the dust and dirt and grime that accumulates from that. So take your time to clean it up, and I'll do that after this video ends. Okay, there's this clip here that holds the drag washers in. That goes into my parts tray. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to find here. I'm going to find felt washers here. One felt washer, very thick felt washer. And that's okay. If you look at what kind of size fish that this is going to be going for, that's plenty. And you can find in these older reels, you'll find all kinds of washers. You'll find felt, you'll find cork, you'll find leather, you'll find Teflon or plastic. They all get a little bit of a different treatment. And the more modern reels, they seem to stick with the harder washers like the HT100s for pens or Carbon Tex or the like. But even there, here's a felt washer from the 70s, and the Penn Fierce 1 and 2s and some of the Shimanos use those felt washers. So the felt washer goes back in. And the secret or the trick with felt washers is you got to keep them lubricated, otherwise they dry and tear. The best lubrication is use some fishing reel oil. Okay, we got that. Just clean the dirt off the face of this. All right, it's not rubbing off with the paper towel, so I'm going to move over to some steel wool just to provide a little bit of extra strength to remove some of that stuff. You want these smooth, like the back side of this one, because it won't glide and it won't give you a smooth drag if it's got any kind of impediments on there. Alright, and then the last part, just clean the dirt off that wire spring. Put the spring back in. There's a groove that spring sits in. Make sure you seat it in the groove. And missing the groove here. There we go, just snapped in. Same here, this goes up. That spring doesn't do anything other than hold the drag assembly in place. So just make sure you've got that in properly. Clean the back of your spool here. We can reassemble. Get the drag knob, which has also got a lot of dirt on it. Clean that off. And I'll go back and I'll do some more of that cosmetic cleaning after this is over. But for now, it's more of a mechanical thing to show you how to do this if you have one. And if by chance you see one out there, I'll let you know it's a good buy. Don't shy away from these just because it's got some merchant's name on it as opposed to Daiwa. I imagine a lot of folks who may have bought a Daiwa reel probably passed on this one because they just saw Sears and it's Sears. No, it's Daiwa. Look at that. $5 reel ready to go fishing again. And this one is going to catch some nice fish. My estimate would be that the line range on this would be 10 to 15 pounds. It would probably hold about 200 yards of line. Perfect for inshore fishing in the lakes. I'm thinking it'll cast nicely. And there you go. So this is the Sears Model 150, engineered and designed in the United States, manufactured in Japan. And by all indications, it was manufactured in Japan by Daiwa. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it. If you have any questions regarding fishing reels, whether it's this fishing reel or one that you're working on where you're stuck or you just need some general information, please use the comment section for that, as well as to provide feedback. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And finally, if you have a fishing reel that needs repair and you'd like me to work on it for you, then contact me by the information on the business card, and please use the email. That's the best way to get a prompt response from me. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.